Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm your host, Matthew Mugno, joined with my co-host, Steven Murno. We're here to break all things down New York Rangers and no Fox, big problem. That's going to be the theme this episode as Adam Fox was injured in the miserable game against the Tampa Bay Lightning on November 29th. His second career long-term injury. And Steve, first I want to talk about some Thanksgiving stuffing, some cranberry sauce, and of course I want to, ask you how you've been. I feel like I haven't seen you in a little while on here.
Yeah, I've been great, dog. I've been great. Thanksgiving was great. Hopefully, everybody listening had a happy Thanksgiving, wherever you're listening from. How was your Thanksgiving?
Great. I traveled down. I was telling you before we hopped on, but down in Virginia, had a broadcast Saturday. So actually, I missed the Rangers Tampa game. I got to watch the MSG rewind.
Lucky, bro.
I'm
You're
still a
lucky.
cable head, so I know I didn't miss much. But yeah, busy. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Have you ever seen that movie?
No,
Must watch.
no, add it to the long bucket list.
But that's kind of like Steve Martin's character in that movie embodies what the New York Rangers fan is experiencing the last two seasons. So, on that note, for any of the folks that get that reference, let's start with last week against Carolina. I pull into Virginia. We got the game on a big TV. I'm playing some board game stuff with my family, but obviously my attention's there. I'm firing up the Twitter, the X to talk with the Rangers community, and I thought, Steve, encompassing the last three games, the New York Rangers dominate the Carolina Hurricanes in their head to head matchups because Carolina shoots low quality on Igor Shesterkin. He eats those low quality chances up because on most goaltenders in the NHL, that'll work, but it won't work against a top three, arguably number one goaltender in the NHL at the level he has displayed over the last 3-4 seasons. And the Rangers then counter Carolina on the counter attack. They swing the other way and they score. They capitalize on their chances. We've seen this pretty much the 2019-20 season, the entire Panarin era. The only time that it vanished from their game was in that bubble, but obviously there's a lot to be said. Maybe not an asterisk, but certainly a footnote on why the Rangers lost those three games in the bubble. But overall, Steve, the Rangers, they have Carolina's number. And Carolina, um, I think, you've said it, that game made me think, all right, they might not be the team that they're really hyped up to be every season. Not to say they're not good, not to say they won't get there, but they haven't really done anything meaningful in this time frame with uh, Rod Brindamore as the coach. It's not to say their style is boring. It's not to say that it doesn't win them hockey games and it doesn't get them the distance most years. But overall, I thought that game was close to the Rangers' best game of the season. I still think that's in the tank, though.
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there only because of the opponent. I couldn't agree with you more on the point you made with Carolina in the Rob Brindamore days. But this was a big win. This was vintage Igor in this game. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
was on his game from the opening faceoff all the way through the final horn of this game. I mean, the Rangers don't end their losing streak against Carolina without him being at the top of his game and the way he played in this game. I thought it was so crucial, and that was a big win. That was a win that you sit there and you watch and you say, you know what, like we're legit. We are legit. It makes you feel good, and I think this is the kind of performance that Igor is going to have to give if we are going to return to the playoffs. I think the
Mm.
Hurricanes had a lot of scoring chances uh, in this game, and they also had a lot of high danger chances in this game. I don't know the numbers in front of me, but and a lot of the high danger chances were in that third period. I remember, and the Hurricanes they carried the pace of play. They kept firing away. but Igor did not break. I mean, he was sensational in this game. So that was a huge takeaway for me in this game. And for me, it didn't matter how you beat Carolina. You just needed to walk away with 2 points. I mean,
That's
preferably
the
not
MO
over.
too, right? Like
Exactly.
it's always that way in Carolina. I always bring up Steven. I know you joke with me all the time about this. The game that Kreider had they won 1-0. They had Georgiev in net. The Rangers won with 8 shots on goal, and I think Carolina had 40 plus. Like that's always how it goes.
Yeah. And funny you mentioned Kreider. There's a point I want to make on him later in the epi. When we
Okay.
transition
I
to a
know where
different.
you're going with that.
I think you do know where I'm going with that. Um, but other things I would say, looking back at this game, I think one area I think that continues to plague us, I think it's our inability to draw power plays. Tell me if you agree with this. I think, um, there was. I think this game was an example of it, and it didn't really matter given the result. But this was just one of those games that I'm sitting there, and you look at while Carolina had a lot of gave a lot of opportunities. It's one that you say and you look at this and you look at other games. I think we have to do a better job of being able to draw power plays in other games. I tell, especially on home ice. I don't know. You could tell me if you agree or disagree with that. But I think that's something we gotta be a little bit better with.
Oh, 100%. I've actually think I've seen floating around some statistics that the Rangers are on the lower end, if not the lowest end of the NHL in drawing penalties. And it's not like a statistic that coaches are going to like put a player on the ice for, like, oh, he'll draw a penalty. Um, but I think what drawing penalties is generally associated with is that you have possession and you're possessing and dominating enough in the offensive zone that it forces the other team that's tired to take a hook, to throw a slash. And we know that most of the time now in the NHL, especially regular season, like unless it's a really hot contest, those are going to be called. Um, it's like a quota for the officials at this point. So I agree with you on that. Kind of the main thesis, or kind of like what I gathered from these 3 games: the win against Carolina, the domination of a really battered Bruins team, and then the really bad loss, probably the worst loss I would say of the last 2 seasons, and that says a lot, is that the Rangers A game is strong. The Rangers A game is a wild card team. They'll play strong defensively. Um, their numbers on the kill have been okay. They're kind of in the middle of the road. Their goals for has gone up. They're now a top 10 in goals for team. At least in the month of November, they were in the top 10 with 42 total goals before Saturday. So to me, I think the New York Rangers A game, what we see often on the road, is very good and it's convincing. The problem with the New York Rangers is their B game. Uh, and I know this isn't really a statement that coaches will use, but I'll go as far to say the C game, the worst of the worst, is bad. Their B game is bad. And the problem with a bad B game is in a season with an Olympic schedule where there's 13 sets of back to backs, 9 coming up. They've played 4. They won every single road game on the Friday, or I think most were on the Friday, if not all, where they look like the Globetrotters. Example, Detroit Red Wings contest, where Panarin and Lafreniere caught fire. Then, 24 hours later, home games on Saturdays, where you're going to have a packed arena. Obviously, it's been a bone of contention, and I know I'm going to toss the home arena conversation to you in a moment. The problem with this B game is that a B game to me is when you're tired, you traveled, you took a red eye, you went to sleep late, you're getting up early, there's no morning skate, and now you're playing again in 24 hours, less than 24 hours in some cases. That's where you're expecting the Rangers to be not at their best. Let's steal a point. Our goaltender, we're going to have to rely on quick. We're going to have to rely on Igor, like we saw against Tampa. And the problem with that is this team, their B game especially on back-to-backs, is real bad. They haven't won a single second game in a back-to-back on home ice. That's coupled with the shutouts that were in October and November, where they weren't winning at home at all. And I think that will be the crux of the season. They have 9 more back-to-backs. The Olympic schedule is killing teams. League executives are talking about this. It's not some made-up fairy tale thing that Matt Mugno is saying. But the reality is the excuse was there for a moment in Toronto, and it was quickly squashed by the media, and rightfully so, because every team's dealing with it. Every team is dealing with the Olympic break. Every team has back-to-backs. 13 of them. If you go 9-9, which right now they're on pace to break, they're mediocre. They're mid. They're splitting each back-to-back contest. And their B game looks far worse than their A game in the night before. That will sink the season because right now they're 13, 12, and 2. And that's really what's kept them there. You think about the 4 back-to-backs, that's a 4-4 marker. That's 8 games split into the 27 games this season already. So to me, that's the soapbox I'm standing on this episode, Steve. And with that, you said that you think the crux of this season will be home ice. I agree with you. A league journalist, I can't remember the name. I know Elliot Friedman talks about it all the time on 32 Thoughts, has famously said, if you're going to stink on the road. Beggars can't be choosers. The Rangers are good on the road, but they stink in front of the people that are buying the tickets. So, Steve, take it away, man. Why do you think that home ice is going to be the make or break for the Rangers this year?
I couldn't agree with everything you just said. And for me, I've said this here on the pod. I'm gonna keep sticking to it. It's like Steve-O's main thesis is just the home play. We are not a good team until we start proving that we can dominate and win at home, and we have not shown that. Going back to the Boston game, I think something that was so successful was that we came out to a fast start. I mean, we skated off the ice in the first 20 minutes. We were up 2-0, and that was like the first time, and they said on the broadcast, in like 8 or 9 games that, after the first 20 minutes, we were up and leading. And that is a big problem. And you look at our home games, we're never up 1-0 at home. It's always a slow start at home. So I think that is something. A fast start is so crucial. And I want to bring back what I said on the last episode or 2 episodes ago or whatever. It's not even a fast start. We just need a stable start. And we're not getting that on home ice. I mean, you can't win if you don't score, and you can't score if you don't shoot the puck. And I think the lack of shots, you look at the Tampa game, we'll digest the Tampa game now. We only had 11 shots. I mean, that is not good. I mean, you talk about a C game. I mean, that was just uncompetitive, that game. Yeah, you're lucky you didn't watch that game, because that game was the worst game of the season. I know, we were talking, off the air, and I know the Islander game came up. I mean, that Islander game is better because we had opportunities. There was more action going on. This game was so dry. I mean, this game was drier than my nose here in the winter. I mean, this was the worst game of the season. I have a worst effort of the season. I mean, yes, we looked fatigued. We looked horrible. But to your point on the back-to-back, I mean, it's not going to get better. I mean, good teams play back-to-back, and they still find ways to scrape out wins. You look at the Rangers 2 years ago. I mean, that's what that team found a way. You won or lost, the first night, second night, it doesn't matter if you find a way to come back in overtime, win a shootout. They found a way to get it done and scrape it out. This New York Rangers team, I haven't seen that so far, and you just got to take this game and throw it in the garbage and move on, because, yes, Canes and Bruins, those are promising wins, but home ice is a problem. I mean, we can't ignore this, man. I mean, 2-11 at home is a huge problem, and it keeps me from saying that we're a good team. I don't know if you could say the same thing, but I mean, good teams don't go 2-11 to start the year at home.
Well, Steve, you're right, because let's look at the Rangers schedule from November. They were 8-7. That was a record, right? And unfortunately, it's like they were 8-6. They lose that last game. It pulls them now again within 500. Now you look at the goals for, they're up, okay, but when you factor in where they scored those goals, well, the game against Detroit, they had a differential of +3. The game against Boston, they had a differential of that was 6-1,
Yeah.
6-2. So +4, +5, say. And the problem is at home, you get shut out. Now the differential is not only you got shut out at home. I mean, how many times have we seen that? Or just a poor performance. But that's what is affecting their numbers overall. And it's like this mystical, the algebra crowd cannot explain to you, or cannot explain to me, or cannot explain to you guys listening right now. The algebra crowd has no way to analyze this. And that's why I think we have to rely on just common sense, common human understanding. Um, for lack of better terms, like basic sports mantra. And to me, that's you have to win the games at home. And now there have been times where we saw the New York Rangers, the Road Warriors in 2014. That's not this team, and that is a lucky situation, right? I'm not saying that it can never happen, and I'm the first to believe that anything can happen. But I think it's the fact that you don't want to rely on road victories to get you through a season. You have to win at the world's most famous arena, especially, Steve, which you and I have talked about before. Like other teams get up to play at MSG, and it's
Mhm.
no. So um, I think that the home ice conversation is just going to continue into the month of December, where 6 of the next 8, they're at home. So they're going to have to figure it out, Stephen. And they have some of the best competition coming in. Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, off the bat. Then you have Montreal, one of the hottest young teams. Anaheim, the return of some former New York Rangers. That one is going to set the internet on fire. And then closing out, Vancouver and the Flyers. And then there's, I think, one more against no, Carolina's after they go on the road. So I'm not sure what the end of the month is looking like, but um, I think the Flyers game is the last home game, Steve. So to go with your point, they're playing a number of games in a very short window, and a number of them are at home. And guess what? I see 2 sets of back-to-backs in there too, which is what I was talking about, my friend.
Yep. And I'm going to say this right now. This is the biggest, in my opinion, this is the biggest stretch of the season right now coming up.
Mm.
2 wins in 11 home games this year, and 5 out of the next 7 are home. I mean, this is the biggest part of the season coming up because now we're playing all these home games, and the Metro is so competitive. We're only what 2 games out of a playoff spot, but we're also trending near. You lose uh, tomorrow night against the Stars, and you're in last place. So I mean,
Steve,
this
ready for this? I don't want to
it is,
interject
it is,
and
it
cut
is.
you off again, but 3 wins out from first in the Metro right now.
3 wins. There you go. But the problem is you gotta win to maintain that status. And now we're playing all these games at home, which we have not been good at, and we also have to play now without Adam Fox. So home
Actually,
games,
Steve-O,
no Adam
Steve-O,
Fox.
let's get there. Let's get there in a second with Foxy, because I think you and I are going to have to really dive into that.
I agree, yes, but I'm saying home games with Fox. I mean, that is worst case scenario right now. That's a nightmare right now. And what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that losing to the red hot Lightning, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. What's embarrassing about this is the complete utter lack of competitiveness, and that's displayed at home, and this the loss to the Lightning the other day, is very, very similar to a Rangers loss last year, when the effort was just, totally called into question. And that is
Mm-hmm.
what scares me. And I really don't want to see that because I'm getting flashbacks of last year, and it's really not New York Rangers hockey to play like that.
Yes, Steve. You know what? This team, the Connor Sheary scratch to me was fruit of the month. It was very, all right, this is what the fan base has identified as a problem, and they're making it a little bit of a bigger deal than it is. In reality, was it going to affect things? A little bit, right? The lineup matters, but and the lineup construction we've talked about all year. But at the same time, this New York Rangers team is going to go as far as when Artemi Panarin is a game breaker. We saw that against Carolina. This team's going to go as far as when JT Miller can drag the team into the fight against Colorado on the road. This team's going to go as far as Adam Fox in the last 9 games before his injury. 9 points in 9 games, 25 points in 26 games. I'm going to pull up the stats I dug up on Foxy. Take away my Twitter account because I tweeted this right before the game on Saturday. Steve, I think it's time we talk about Adam Fox, right? We've been hyping it up all episode, and I think it's really the most necessary conversation to have on the podcast today. These were Adam Fox's numbers before he got injured. Without Adam Fox, Vince Mercogliano reported today the New York Rangers are going to run a 5-man forward group as the power play unit. Some folks thought that it might be Scott Morrow getting an opportunity. I didn't think so because he didn't really even get much playing time to begin with. In 2019-20, he split time with Tony DeAngelo on the point. When DeAngelo left, it was Adam Fox's quarterback position. And from that point forward, Adam Fox has been the go-to player. Adam Fox had one long-term injury in his entire career. I say it all the time, beat the dead horse on this because I got to ask him the question. I said, Adam Fox, have you ever been injured long-term in your entire hockey career? He said no. This is now the second time he has a long-term injury. He was placed on LTIR. He'll be out for 24 days and 10 games minimum, which is the month of December. He'll probably be back before the new year. Overall, it's going to affect the power play. It's going to affect the defensive group that really doesn't have offense outside of Fox. Now, have I been impressed with some of Carson Soucy's play to turn defense into offense? Yes, I've been very impressed by him. But, Steve, to me, this is where the Keandre Miller deal comes back to bite you a little bit. Gavrikov, to me, proved that he was the right move. But, over signing Keandre Miller, that is. But now a group that already lacked offense moved Miller, who is the other potential quarterback, other player that had flashes of offense on the back end. And this right now is going to be the biggest challenge for the Rangers to overcome. Adam Fox is their number 1 D. He's their number 1 offensive defenseman. And I don't think the sum of this defensive group's parts come close to what Fox brings. Now, Gavrikov has been all right, but that's when he's with Fox. He's been really good on the offensive side of the puck too, surprisingly. But overall, I think that you're right, Steve. This is the toughest stretch of the season. This might be the stretch of the season if the Rangers can win games or grind out wins without Adam Fox.
Yeah, and going on LTIR means that he's probably going to be back in 2026, and that is still a big loss. I think he is such an irreplaceable skater. If you look at all the players that the Rangers have on this team, I mean, Fox has got to be with either the number 1 or number 2 skater that really is irreplaceable. I mean, even if you take out, Panarin or JT Miller out of this lineup, Fox I still think is a bigger loss, and I think it's going to make this very difficult getting the playoffs. Playing a month at home without Fox, depending on how this month is going to play out. Like you mentioned, Fox has been on such a roll. I mean, he has what, 26 points so far. I mean, what does our next defenseman have? 11. That shows you the offensive production that he has. And I know that he was tied for the most assists in the league alongside McCarr, and his absence is going to really leave a giant hole in this defensive corps, because now you need to replace, like you said, your number 1 power play quarterback, a player who's averaged more than 70 points in the last few years, and also most importantly for me this is a defenseman who's averaging 25 minutes a game. So now you're gonna have to replace that. And now you got all these back-to-back coming up, back-to-back games. Who's going to step up and play 25 minutes a game on the defensive side of things and fill in for Adam Fox, 2 nights in a row? I mean, That is going to be a really tough task. You look at Schneider, it seems like he is going to be the one who takes Fox's spot on the number one pair. I know that during practice today, it seemed like he's going to be the one, but still, Fox being out for the next month, I mean, this is a massive hole for the lineup, and it could even be longer. He might, and the thing about Fox is that we've seen this in previous years. He's not the same player when he comes back from injury. He looks slow. He doesn't look like himself. So that's something I sit here and I worry about. But this is a really big hole, man. This is a problem, especially with home games coming up against tough opponents. Colorado, Vegas, teams that swarm you. Your defense has to be on their best games. It's going to be tough. This is going to be tough. Do you have confidence?
I think by not directly saying anything at all, I'm on the fence, that's for sure. And I think what you said is more about, for me, the New York Rangers in 23-24, when Hedel and Fox were injured in the same game against Carolina. I was covering the team at the time. Eric Gustafsson stepped up into that power play one. Capo Caco was out too with injury. Johnny Brodzinski slotted into the lineup, and it was seamless. The problem with the team this year, which we've seen and has been a theme, is that when one player gets injured, like Vincent Trocheck, the roster is not built to lose one key player. We saw that with Trocheck. We saw that as soon as Trocheck came back, how valuable he is. And we're going to see that, I think, again with Adam Fox. The Rangers at the time had an Eric Gustafsson, a player that wasn't being paid a lot, to step up, had offensive flair, maybe wasn't the best defensively, but could move the puck, third pair, kind of have a chemistry with Braden Schneider on that bottom pairing where it was like Schneider might be better than a third pairing B. But Eric Gustafsson can move the puck. He can play make at the blue line when they're in the offensive end. Braden Schneider is more responsible in the defensive end. So that's kind of the chemistry they had, right? The Rangers don't have that. I can't imagine where they're going to get the offense from, because I think Gavrikov, his great offense that we've seen so far is the result of his partner, Adam Fox. And certainly he's jumped into the fray. I don't want to take any credit away from Gavrikov here, but he's not going to generate 20 assists, right? Like, you can't replace Adam Fox in that respect. The problem is, the Avalanche lose Makar, there's Taves. And Taves isn't Makar, but he can substitute and at least give the team some sense of a glue on the back end, especially when you talk about power play, when you talk about offense from the blue line, zone breakouts. So, yeah, Steve, are you confident?
No, I'm not. I'm with you. I am a little optimistic with Schneider. I think he's handled an increased role with more penalty killing and power play time already this season, and I think he's a player that I think, definitely in recent years, that I think has an opportunity. I think to show that he's capable of more. He's basically been like a third pair staple these last few years, but I think now he really gets his chance to really prove that he's capable of handling more minutes. And he's going to get his first opportunity against the league's best beginning tomorrow night against Dallas when the Stars come to town. So I think Schneider, can he handle it? Yes. How is he going to thrive? I don't know. It might take him a few games to get some chemistry. And also, I don't know what the other defensive pairs are going to give you. I don't know, and I don't want the defense. The defense was such a big question coming into the season. I don't want the holes to start coming out now, because that is just going to throw. Igor is playing so super well. I don't want to mess that up. He's been great. And, when the defense is not playing good, the entire offense, doesn't matter what line it is, gets thrown out of loop. And then we start chasing games, we start falling behind, and then we start becoming the Rangers from last year. So this could be a problem. I don't want to sound any alarms yet, but it's going to be tough. And we're just talking defensively. We're not even we're not even talking offensively. What Adam Fox has been able to produce, at this point in the season, I just don't see anybody on the defensive side giving you that performance. Maybe for one single game, yes, but consistently, I don't see anybody doing that. Right?
Yeah, I don't think you can though. And like I think understandably so. Like if the Rangers lost Panarin up front, which is the conversation, right, that everyone's having about his free agency is like, well, you remove him from the equation, where's some of the production coming from? Even though we know he's not, a playoff player, even though we know his age, it's still a valuable conversation to ask yourself, where do those 90 points get split up into next season? We're seeing it with Mitch Marner in Vegas. Toronto is struggled out of the gate. They are struggling immensely. And I bet right now they're looking and saying, well, we could have used some of those 90 points right about now. Now, it's a little bit different when we're talking about injury because that's not necessarily a choice. But it's kind of the conversation I just had with Carolina, right? I think they suffer because they don't have a game breaker. The Rangers do have game breakers. And when the game breakers are all in their A game, it's phenomenal. They look like a wild card team. When their game breakers are all off, and then you have a long-term injury to your number one game breaker rear guard in Adam Fox, then you're in a little bit of trouble. But overall, I don't think a team in the NHL has the talent to replace an Adam Fox. You can only kind of get by. And luckily in 23-24, the Rangers had Gustafsson. They don't even have a Keandre Miller right now. So I think that's where the problem is. And something else came to mind as you were talking, Steve. That question for you.
Yeah.
Is this Braden Schneider's last chance to prove himself to the organization as a top tier defenseman? We heard Mike Sullivan, we heard Peter Laviolette. Both of them doubled down and have told reporters that they believe that Schneider isn't a third pair defenseman. He's one of the most important defensemen in the organization, but this is just the position he's in. But I'm starting to feel like with the way his contract extension will be, it's coming up. Is he going to be another Keandre Miller where you have to sacrifice and, you don't have the money to pay him? And you say to yourself, well, he's been playing third pair. Is it worth paying him the bag right now? I'm curious. This is a very early conversation, but I think this is going to be the conversation over the next month because very valuable point you mentioned. This is his time to shine.
Yeah, I think you're going to agree with me on this. I don't think I think we've already seen his ceiling. I don't think by putting him in a big role that you're going to see him come out and you're going to get different. I think you're going to get the same Braden Schneider that you got, on the third line, on the third pairing, second pairing. I think you're going to get the same. I don't think that I don't think he's top tier in this league. I think he's a solid defensive player. I think he's a very important piece on this defense just because of the stability he brings, and you know what he brings to the table. I just don't see you giving him more minutes and him blossoming. And trust me, I would love to be wrong on this. I would love to play this back in like a month from now, and like Braden Schneider is the reason why we're on a 6-game winning streak. But I don't see it, dog. Like we've given him the opportunity. It's just how many other people he's played with, in the past. I don't see it. I'm not saying that he's not good. Yes, of course he's good, but I just don't. I wouldn't call him top notch. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Still
Yeah,
a
I think
little
what's
early.
unfortunate. Yeah, I think he had that injury last year or for 2 years that he didn't have a repair. That was interesting. The shoulder injury. I think that affected his physical play. His numbers aren't bad for a more defensive focused kind of big hit turning point player. Like they called him Baby Truba. Um, I think what is a telltale sign to me that maybe we didn't look enough into. And I think this is, I think, a very valuable conversation to have at this time because, like you said, he's going to have a lot of runway here. But does the organization trade for Will Borgen and then sign him a few months later for that second right D spot if they truly believe Braden Schneider was going to be better? I would say no. I would say no. If they thought Braden Schneider was going to be a better player or was going to be in that spot at a training camp, they don't sign or extend Will Borgen. Or maybe we're seeing at the end of last year some time where they're swapping spots in the lineup. Maybe you're right. Maybe we're going to be completely wrong, and I'd be very happy to be. But that's kind of, I think I'm happy you brought that up because it's a conversation I didn't expect to have, but it's all kind of there. And I think you saw, Steve, credit to you. Like, I think you saw beyond the Fox injury as to like what's next. And I actually think the Braden Schneider conversation is going to come into the fold very quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. You know, the whole Borgen thing. I didn't think of that, and now you mentioned that. You're 100% right on that. And I think the organization knows that, and I think they would fully agree with what I said. I think it's very obvious. You know, if you're a Ranger fan, you know, and you watch this team every night, you know, I think just that's the consensus. You know, and it's not something that I sit here and I say, you know, you got to move on. It's just that you just can't expect more from a player that's not going to give it to you. And I think that's the same situation that we're sitting in right now. Um, but we'll see what he does when Dallas comes to town tomorrow night. Dallas is coming in very hot. They
Mm-hmm.
swept. They swept all the games they played last week. I don't know if they're on a 4 or 5 game winning streak. They're one of the they have one of the better records in the league. However, they still have a record that would put them on top of any division except the one they play in because Colorado plays in that division. And they're 2 games behind them, so they want to keep pace with Colorado. And last year we split the series. Yes, we did. We split the series. We won in Dallas and we lost at home. And I think the keys to this game, I think, is you need a fast start, but you have to neutralize and shut down Jason Robertson. He is red hot. He is like such a driving force in this Dallas offense. You know, so you got to shut him down. Interesting to note that Jake Ottinger, in recent memory that I remember, Jake Ottinger has not played well against us historically. So I think what are we're like one, or he's 1-3 against us.
Mm.
So I think, or something like that. But we've played well against him, and he's very good. So that has kind of surprised me. Let's keep that going. So I think those are my keys to the game, as well as Igor. You know, I think Igor has got to do what he's been doing. You know, he does that. You know, it helps the defense out, helps the offense out, just puts us out in a better position to win this game. And again, without Fox, the stars show up and the stars align. You're going to win games. You know, you look at Carolina game, you look at the Boston game, you look at it's Panarin, it's Trocheck, it's Zibanejad, it's Miller. Stars come out, they shine, you win games. You know, and we need more than 11 shots this game.
Yeah, Steve, you're right. Something we didn't mention was like the Rangers' third line has been really strong. They waived Parsonen. We didn't even really touch on that kind of, I think, low hanging news. But what I like about that is I think Johnny Brodzinski's earned a shot in this organization for long enough. It's getting exhausting watching the team bring in Blake Wheeler and Connor Sheary, and then it's like, well, Brett Berard probably should have been up all year. And granted, I know we're talking about pennies and dimes here with third liners playing 8 minutes a night, not penalty killing, not power play unit, but at the same time, overall their impact's been felt. And with that said, I 100% endorse what you said. Like this team is going to go as far as the game breakers. Their A game, Igor's A game. He's going to have to bring it. And I also like what you said. I think this actually could favor the Rangers a little bit because Jake Ottinger comes in with like a 900 save percentage. He hasn't really lived up to his billing. I think Igor hasn't either, but he's been better than Ottinger on a team that struggled more in front of him. Now, the home ice record, of course, is going to be the dark cloud overhead. But you're right. The last number of games that the Rangers and Stars played, it was there was scoring going on. It wasn't your 1-0, you know, low event game. So I think this is going to be a high octane, high event. And I think what it's going to come down to is, can the Rangers outscore this one? Because frankly, I don't think you can expect the first game after Adam Fox is injured to just come out and shut things down. Would it be great? Yeah. But it took them a little while. And we've seen in the past, like the game where they called up Connor Mackey in Ottawa that turned the season around, the President's Trophy year, 23-24. Like that was off the heels of injuries. Zach Jones was playing a lot of time. Connor Mackey was up in that game. He had that fight that kind of sparked the team. So I don't think you can expect just like right off the jump for the team to adapt without a player that significant, but they're going to have to do it quickly. And I think a way you can survive Dallas is by outscoring them. I think a way you can survive Ottawa on the road is by getting the hell off the tracks when Brady Tkachuk is on the ice. So I think those are going to be two keys to the next two games, and hopefully you and I are on the airwaves before then.
Yeah, we should be. Next game after Dallas, like you just mentioned, Ottawa. Still have a bad taste. Sorry for bringing it up, but I got a bad taste in my mouth from that blown 3-1 game in the final 3 minutes of regulation
Yeah.
last year. They missed our chance to move us into a wild card spot and really just derailed our season. At that point, the season really was derailed, but we kind of pieced it together, and that one just everything completely fell apart after that game. Senators this year have really been struggling to keep the puck out of the net. So, I mean, this is an opportunity for us offensively to come out and, we're a good team on the road to really perform against a team that's really struggling defensively. And I think we need to take advantage of that. Final point that I wanted to mention.
Go for it, Steve.
We talk about team identities, and I'm kind of, I after the stretch, a lot last week's stretch of winning games, I kind of formulated this idea in my head where, this was a conversation that we've had the last few years, and we really can't figure out what the identity of this team is. I really do think we're a team from the red line in. We can play with high tempo. We just don't play that way full ice. I think just starting game stale, no urgency, don't help out the way we play. And again, you look at that Tampa game, we just got outplayed for 60 minutes. And I think watching that Tampa game, I think, no in front net presence really killed us. And that's why I said, I want to talk about Kreider, because
Uh,
I I felt the absence of Kreider watching that game, because even in games like this 2 years ago, when we're struggling to get shots in front of the net, getting trouble in front of the net was able to change the tide, and sometimes served as an opportunity for us to climb back into games, even when there were no shots.
mm,
And just watching that Tampa game, I mean, we couldn't get anybody. Will Cooley is the closest to Chris Kreider, I think, comparison wise, in front of the net, and even then, it's not enough. I mean, we have to get bodies in front of the net. That's something that for me, growing up as a child, the Rangers did that so successfully, and I think that's what made us, gave us success. And I think this year that's lacking. Like, we don't have any of that, and I think that's what we miss: a Kreider in front of the net, getting trouble, screening goalies left and right. We don't see that. You want to look at the Detroit game, you want to look at the Tampa game. I mean, that is something that I think we need to address. What do you? I'll flip it over to you. You can respond however you want.
yeah, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that like the Rangers aren't dump and chase, but they're like a hybrid dump and chase. And I don't associate not having Chris Kreider on the power play or net front as the same conversation as the Rangers identity conversation. Like I know Rick Bowness was on TNT talking about that before the Boston game, the Black Friday game. And I do still think the Rangers haven't cemented an identity. But I think going along the lines of what you're talking about with Kreider, that's going to be definitely, at the forefront of the conversation with the power play. They're running a 5-man power play unit. So whoever's going to be net front, is going to have to perform quite well because your point shooter is not going to be Adam Fox. He's not the top of the key. I don't love the 5-man forward group because I think naturally a defender is going to look for a stick on the net front man, look for options in a way they're conditioned to. I also don't know, like Mika's one timer, is there much left in that tank? We saw a little bit against a battered Boston team, but like, are we really counting on that at this point? Who is the net from? Right? Like all year, it's kind of been, I think, looked over. So I'm glad you brought this up too, because I think now, unfortunately, this is probably going to be a conversation for all the wrong reasons that Chris Kreider's not around. Because I think if you put me at the point, he's probably finding a way to tip the puck in. Whereas right now, we've seen Miller at times, we've seen Cooley at times, but boy, they're going to have to find a way to, like you said, take the goalie's eyes, find those cross ice feeds, and you can really find those cross ice feeds when you take away the goalie's eyes. So that's going to be crucial, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation here in December without Adam Fox. So I think it's funny. A lot of what we talked about today is going to be, I think, just a continuation throughout the month.
Yeah, it's I think a conversation, a deeper conversation for another time. But I just wanted to throw it in front of the net and see what you would tip in. So I appreciate that. And I think that'll wrap us up here for this episode of Puck Talk CS. As always, follow along all our socials at Puck Talk CS, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of our platforms for everything Rangers for a big month of December. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.